the person behind the Calhoun controversy, Mr. Ken Seg02. Thanks once again for being back. We're going to put things in perspective right now, Ken, having to do with salaries at the state level. We actually have another full screen that we're going to take right now. This has to do with salaries. The top paid state employees, of course, Calhoun is at the top. Then we have the football coach. Then we have Gino Auriemma. In comparison to what Governor Rell makes, $150,000. I kind of have a problem, too, that why is Gino paid the least amount out of it? Is it because it's a women's sport? That bothers me.
There might be a Title IX issue there, but
do you agree? I mean, I think he's definitely been there longer than the football coach, but that's a whole other story.
Well, apparently they base it on revenue, and I just keep sitting there saying to myself, if you want to base this on revenue, then why doesn't Denise Napier get a percentage of all the money that she makes? Because I'm sure she makes more than $12 million a day for the university, or for the state of Connecticut itself, when she trades bonds and stocks and whatnot for pension funds. Or should every state cop get a 5% cut of every ticket that he writes if we're talking about bringing in revenue to the state? Or should the people in the Department of Social Services who wrote the legislation that brings in extra child support from deadbeat dads, do they get a cut of the child support that they bring in? No, this is a team effort. And I think we all need to, all hands on deck, as I said.
I have a few comments that we're going to go to from my blog. I wrote about this, and I actually worked in the sports information department at Seton Hall, and I had plenty to say about that in comparison. And I do have an idea what it's like, you know, on the sideline and how the game is played and what should and should not happen. And I can tell you, I'd never heard P.J. Carlesimo talk that way during a press conference, or as Calhoun does, he tends to swear a lot during games, and I never heard P.J. Carlesimo do that either. And I was actually taken aback by it when I was at a game and heard some of the words that Coach Calhoun said. But moving on, in the blog, you seem to be taking some heat from comments I've received saying that it was inappropriate for you to ask this at a press conference after a basketball game. And then Rick, a familiar face here at Fox 61, he actually had this to say. He took issue with the fact that you slammed other reporters in the room. He said, I think Seg02 owes the reporters who were in that room an apology. If he wants to ask Calhoun a question, fine, but to disparage the beat reporters who cover the team was unprofessional, and he crossed the line. He also said that when the heat was on, you kind of folded, whereas a seasoned journalist would have kind of reiterated the question differently. And you did say, yeah, I'm stupid. My advice to you as a reporter, you never admit that, number one. But what would you say to what Rick said? I mean,
my mom said the same thing. Why did you say you're stupid? Well, because if I sit there and say, no, I'm not dumb, then we're in 7th grade. I just want to get past that point. I'm not in 7th grade. I'm an adult. I'm a professional. You don't speak to me like that.
Well, you just say, excuse me, Coach Calhoun, but that is not how I spoke to you. But, no, it's a fine dance. It's tough. I deal with these politicians all the time. It's tough.
I've foiled with Coach Calhoun before. And
were you disparaging the reporters in that room because you had said nobody else would ask it? But it's, as sports reporters, if they ask that question, they're cut off forever.
And that's the problem. Why do we let Coach Calhoun behave like this? In 1998, I was writing for the Hartford Advocate, and I covered UConn basketball in their march to the national championship. And I wrote a story, actually, that talked about Coach Calhoun cussing on the sidelines. You could hear him from across the arena on a quiet moment, and he says, bomb, you know, he drops an F-bomb or something.
Oh, I've heard that, too, and I was floored.
I wrote a column about that, and they cut access off. And it's like, okay, how come? And so the beat reporters for the last decade, if not longer, have been enabling him, should we say, because they understand, well, if I challenge him, I'm going to get beat up. And it's like, wait a second, why do we do this? Why can't you ask a difficult question? Why? I'm not asking about the price of tea in China.
You can ask a difficult question, but as a sports reporter, perhaps it wasn't necessarily in their line of duty. I don't know. I mean, you know what? Maybe I should have gone to one of these press conferences and asked a question. I don't have a whole lot of access to Jim Calhoun. I've talked with him at the Capitol. If I ran into him, I would have asked him what you asked him. So, absolutely.
And the thing is, everybody said, well, the wrong place. So, well, there is no other place because Calhoun wouldn't answer it. And as to the reporters, I'm fine with calling them out. I've been called out. Look, I've been called out every day this week. You know, how
hard has it been on you?
Well, it's been kind of difficult because I don't like when people bring up the stuff about Governor Rell. I mean, I didn't...
Explain. What happened there is you were taking pictures of Governor Rell, you were on your bicycle or something, and they arrested you because they thought you were a threat?
I was a person of interest. And the thing is, a person of interest who got arrested and thrown in jail on $75,000 bond, and it was reduced to a promise to...
What were you charged with?
I was charged with breach of peace and interfering with an officer, but they were trumped up charges. They were dismissed, and I filed a federal civil rights lawsuit. Norman A. Pattis of Bethany is my attorney, and we're progressing steadily through discovery. But the thing is, it was scurrilous, and it's been difficult to watch people bring up that arrest and say, oh, he's a provocateur, you know, he had no business being in there, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, the version of that out there is different than the version of what really happened.
Well, you were trying to take a picture on the street, no?
Exactly.
Didn't even Governor Rell say this was wrong?
Yeah,
what happened?
And so it just frustrates me that this stuff about Governor Rell is going to be in the inauguration is going to be in my obituary, and it's going to stick with me forever. And so I can't just simply ask a question and let the question stand on the merit. People have to attack me.
Have you had any threats? Has anyone said? I've just UConn fans can be pretty
yeah, I know.
Loyal.
I know, and it's like it's all emotionalism and about sports. And that's what sports is. It's tribal emotions, and the people need to belong. And I understand that. And look, I'm a huge sports fan. My father was a football coach. My grandfather played UConn basketball.
I didn't realize that. There
yeah,
we go.
He played for UConn basketball from 1927 to 1930. Excellent. And so I'm steeped in Husky lore, and I grew up with it, and I understand it. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that I check my criticism at the door. And a sports reporter needs to have all of his faculties ready and available to him and to ask the questions that matter.
All right, Ken, we are out of time. Thanks
Excellent.
For joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.